Oh, thank you, Abba. Thank you, Yahuah, for this day. And thank you, Abba, for this opportunity to come and sit at your feet and learn your language. Thank you, Father, for the sweetness of just the ability to learn. Father, for opening our minds, opening our hearts, opening our ears, and Father, for changing our heart from a heart of stone to a heart of flesh. And I love you, and I know that my fellows are in agreement. May your word go out. May it not return void. May it go out and set what you have caused it to accomplish. In Yeshua's name I pray. Hallelujah. Amen.
Hallelujah. So we were just talking a moment ago here. I try to wear these intentional colors just to play with letters here. So red, blue, orange, if that's going to spell a three-letter word, what might that be? Well, the chart, as I tried to describe last week, is somewhat arbitrary. Now, that being said, other people have tried to synchronize letters with Hertz frequencies with color frequencies and come up with some similarities, but some differences. And it's like, well, I was just talking to a guy a few minutes ago, and he was saying there's another fellow that said, what does blue represent? The blue Zitzi thread, that represents the baptism of Yeshua by John the Immerser and him taking upon himself the sins of the world at that time. And it's like, what? Wait a minute. I thought I learned that when he was crucified, he took upon himself the sins of the world. And this guy's teaching at the baptism, and he's teaching the blue is like the blue, water, or not even water. It's just the concept of the blue Zitziot thread is like blue in the embroidery, is Yeshua, the Mashiach, taking on the sins of the world at his baptism. And the fellow that was telling me about this was saying that he was impressed, or it set well with him, and he was intrigued by the concept. It helped facilitate his thinking. Yeah, but does that mean that's exactly true? Is that really what the blue represents? And it's like, gosh, we're not really told in the Bible what the blue represents. I can elaborate about the word blue is Tehillet, Tav, Kaf, Lamed, Tav, Tehillet. Karen Davis, singer, did a song called The Color of Your People, Israel, or at least part of the lyrics were. In Hebrew, she's singing the words Tehillet Israel. And I thought, what is she saying? What is that word? Before I knew the language. And I looked up in the English translation on the album CD of her songs, and it says, the color of your people, Israel. She was not singing the words, the color of your people. She was singing Tehillet Israel. But you see, that's how stuff gets lost in translation. She was saying blue Israel. No, she said Tehillet Israel. Well, Tehillet is the color blue, but Tav, Kaf, Lamed, Tav. Well, Kaf, Lamed, those are the two letters right in the middle of the ALEF-BEIT, numbers 11 and 12 out of 22. So, well, Yod, Kaf, Lamed means have power and capacity to prevail and contain it all. Kaf, Lamed, Hey is the word for bride, or to be destroyed or end it all. It's also the word for canopy, like a covered bridal chamber, huppah concept. Kaf, Lamed, Mem, to take those three letters, Kalam, I think of the word calamity, where it means to be put to shame and reproach and disdained, and just just everything come to ruin, calamity. Calm, everything stops happening. Instead of happening, it's not happening. Good Kaf Lamed is, yeah, it's happening. Kaf Lamed Mem is, it's all ruined. So how does that fit into the whole equation of the whole ALEF-BEIT? Right in the middle, if you look at a menorah with three cups or bowls on each of the three branches, 333, 333 with four in the middle, Yod Kaf Lamed Mem, if you look at it that way, would be the equivalent of the four letters in the middle of the menorah. Why? Well, people say, well, that middle candle is called the Shemesh, which is the word for sun, S-U-N, like the sun in the sky, which is called that because it's a quick, nimble servant. It's called the servant candle, the shemesh. The shemesh is referring to the sun, but it refers to you got a good guy working for you. You ask him to do something, he does it. He doesn't complain. He doesn't argue. He gets it done. You can trust him. He's Amunah, faithful. Boy, that's having a good right-hand man, a good faithful servant is a shemesh. So the center candle, the shemesh candle of the menorah is used. They light that one first, and they use that one to light all the other 6 branches, just so you know. But the idea of somebody saying, oh, well, the blue represents Yeshua being baptized, it's like in your mind it does, but does that mean that's what he had in mind? The point of that is to say, for me to say, I'm gonna lay out Yod He Vav He, blue, purple, red, white. That's what I talked about a couple of weeks ago. And then, because that's following the color sequence, 2 primary colors and a secondary color. What's the previous secondary and primary? It's, you roll out the color spectrum that way, and that hence the chart. So for me to say bet is the blue color, bet should be blue. It's like, now the people who look at the Hertz frequencies have said 528 is the color green, new growth green, springtime green, like all these buds coming out of the trees right now. That's 528 frequency. So there they've correlated exactly a pitch of music, of sound, with a color frequency. And it happens to be the frequency your cells vibrate at when you feel in love. That's the correlation. And they say that it's one of the solfeggio tones, and if you listen to 528 frequency, it's supposed to repair DNA. Now, is all that true? I don't know. I have no way of proving it. When you feel in love, are you really vibrating at 528? If you listen to a 528 tone, do you feel the same feelings as you do when you feel in love? I don't know. I can't validate, nor can I disagree with any of that. What I'm saying is that the nature of this study is personal contemplation. The word Hagah, Hey Gimel Hey, means to navigate. I was wondering, why is the Navy called the Navy? The armed forces of the sea, out in the ocean, but of course they also have airplanes, so it's like both air and sea. Generally, the Navy isn't on land, although there's Navy bases. Well, if there's Marines on board a ship, technically that's a core of the Navy, but it's not really Navy, it's the Marines. Why do they call them that? Well, mariners or sailors. Well, because back in the olden days, this is my understanding, when there was these sailing ships, if you were a sailor and your job was to climb the mast, climbing up those ropes to get up to the sails, you couldn't have a pistol on you and try to, do the soldier work. You were doing the sailor work. And your life was at risk. I mean, climbing up those things in a storm or while you're under fire and pulling on the ropes to turn the sails to catch the wind, to turn around or work the rudder. It's like your entire consciousness has to be about steering the ship, both for motoring, for propulsion, as well as turning. Somebody else's job is to man the guns, hence the Marines. The Marines weren't sitting there sailing the ship, they were defending the sailors, offensive or defense. So it's a breakdown of job description. And when you have a crew, everybody has to know their job and everybody has to do their job. On a construction crew, the carpenter is not supposed to mess with the electrician's work, or the tile guy, or the painter, or the plumber. The carpenter does the carpenter. And if there's some electrical stuff, he better stop, call the electrician over. Even the foreman technically isn't allowed to, or the superintendent even, isn't allowed to pick up tools and do one little thing. It's like, call that guy over. And you can say, well, the union wants to protect the job of the tradesman. So one tradesman shouldn't take the work away from another tradesman. It's a matter of respect. It's a matter of keeping the job, but it's also keep your mind on your job. That's an important consideration in looking at how does Yahuah's kingdom work and what's our job within the kingdom. Well, but that being said, for someone to tell you, for me to say, or somebody else to say, this is what this letter means, and this is what color means, and this is why a certain color is represented by a certain letter, that's all art. That's all poetry. And somebody could say, it is not. I know exactly that color green is 528 and it lines. Okay, which letter does it line up with? Well, the two green letters are Zion and Pei on the chart. But someone else could say, no, new growth. That should be noon. And it's like, why? Well, and then they'll have a logical spin. And whether or not that's accurate, fully true, or something you could even wrap your mind around, sure, you could talk about it, but does that mean that's what it is? I don't know. So just so you know, the colors on this chart are to a certain degree poetic art. It's based on Yod Vav He being blue, purple, red, white, and then seeing that correlates in my understanding of the Mishkan pattern, Het through Zadi, Het being the gateway of the fence and Zadi being the Ark of the Covenant. And it happens to be that the next letter Kuf looks like an exclamation point and a question mark. The Kuf, the straight line and the swirl line, like a pillar of fire, pillar of smoke. It all looks, in my mind of artistic poetry, to function. So that's the way I think of it. If you don't want to think of it that way, then don't. Think of it some other way that suits you. But think of it. Because the word navigate, Haggah, Hey Gimel Hey, in fact, the way I bumped into that one is I was thinking of the word goyim. Well, goyim is the word for heathen nations. Heathen meaning not Israel, meaning Yahweh is not their Elohim, and they're called goyim. But every once in a while, you'll see in the scripture that the word goy, singular, goyim, yod mem suffix is plural, but goy is referring to Israel as a nation. So it's technically a nation, and you could say, well, Aleph Mem is also nation. So Ayin Mem is people, could be a nation, could be just a people group. Aleph Het is brother. If you were a collection of tribes and not a nation per se, if they were all unified, that's Yod Het Dalet, singular unification like Yahuah Echad, Aleph Het Dalet. But so what I'm saying is, you see the spelling of words, and you look at all these things, and like, well, what's the difference? Why is it? What is a goy? If you listen carefully, you might hear Jewish people say somebody is a goy boy. So if a Jewish girl happens to have a Gentile Christian boyfriend, that's called her goy boy. Oh, haha, that's just a little bit of a poetic. No, that's actually a really rude insult. It's like, why is this Jewish girl got a goy boy toy? Some infidel, heathen, Gentile, or Christian, all the same word, goy. Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Oh, depending on how you take the language, it is a bad thing. It is a shameful thing. Unless, as a Jew, you're just, well, I'm culturally, that's my genetic, whatever. I'm not necessarily. It depends on what you make of the language. But when I was looking at, well, what is this word goy? Gimel Vav Yod. Well, look up Gimel Vav. It's not really a word in the dictionary. Although goy certainly does mean Gentile, but what's Gimel Vav? Well, Vav is the masculine suffix. Hey is the feminine suffix. So theoretically, the root word itself can have either a masculine or a feminine suffix. For example, Shem is name or place. Shemayim, plural, Yod Mem, is translated heavens. But Shemot, Vav Tav, plural, which is the feminine suffix, the Yod Mem is the masculine suffix. Shemot, well, that's the word translated Exodus. What's that got to do with Exodus? It means names or places. And you'll open up the book of Exodus, and it says, these are the names of the people. So because it says these are the names, the word these is Aleph Lamed Hey, names is Shemot, Allah Shemot. So we'll call that book Shemot. So see, in a Hebrew reading, the word Exodus, the book named Exodus, isn't even there. The word for to emigrate or get out of here or to leave is either Shalach or Galah or Zadi Aleph or Zadi Vav Aleph, like get out of here, or to leave, to export, to publish, move to. So what I'm saying is that one of the things I've tried to do is, like a thesaurus book, you can buy a book of synonyms, is remind yourself of which words are synonyms. And in the dictionary, write little footnotes on the columns, the white column next to the words, just to say, yeah, I remember that word is that, and that just is a help to learn. I'm just saying these things as helpful hints in learning to process these words. That's what I'm basically talking about today, is this concept of, I have suggested that there's much benefit in learning Hebrew. Well, what could be the benefit? Why should I do that? You could talk to different people. Right out of the gate, I could say, well, it's the language Yahuah chose to use to create the universe, to speak to his people. It's the language that is at the essence, the root, the source of all things before there was any other language. Well, how do you know that? Because it says so? Yeah, but how do we know he was speaking Hebrew? If you met an angel, a real live angel, or you get a trip to the heavens or whatever it might be, is that angel going to be speaking Hebrew? Or do you think he's going to be speaking English? Or maybe the angel speaks some heavenly tongue that's neither Hebrew nor English. Well, just the very fact that he calls himself Yod He Vav He or Aleph He Yod He, that he refers to himself out of his own mouth when he spoke to Moshe at the burning bush in Hebrew, when he spoke on Mount Sinai and they all heard him speaking in Hebrew. That tells me that it's Hebrew. When Yahusha got baptized by John the Immerser and a voice from heaven came out and said, "This is my beloved son in whom I am well pleased." It's like, is that in Hebrew? Did everybody hear it? Was it Aramaic or Greek maybe? It doesn't tell us what language it was. But if he said, "This is my beloved son," well, Dawid, Dalet Vav Dalet, or Dude is beloved. My beloved would be Dodi. My beloved could be Dodi Lee. This is mine. But son is Ben. So this is Benny, my son, beloved, Benny Dodi, Ben David. This is the son of David. This is Ben David. Could also be read as "This is my beloved son." Listen to him. I'm well pleased in him. If that voice spoke from heaven in Hebrew, then that's a good suggestion that Yahuah's language that he chooses to communicate with his people in is Hebrew. Not that, like I've heard people say that they had near-death experiences and they go up into the heavens and they meet Jesus and he's talking. It's like, why does he talk to them in English? Or maybe he didn't talk to them in English and they didn't see Jesus. Maybe they came back and because they're talking to us, they refer to him as Jesus and it really wasn't Jesus. It really was Yahusha. Or they hear him talking and there your mind is just synthesizing, processing the language. And maybe it's not Hebrew and not English, it's some other thing. But then you come back and you have to talk to people. And so now your mind is automatically plugged into whatever language it is you're on the earth speaking. Could be anything. Just suggesting English because the people I've heard of are speaking English. But what's the real reason for learning Hebrew? So I try to exaggerate certain things to make a point. So you read in King James in Genesis, first day of creation, and it says Yahuah or Elohim said, "Let there be light." That's not true. That's not what he said. I'm contradicting the King James Bible out of the first day. He did not say, "Let there be light." According to the Hebrew text, he said,
2 words, Yahi or. Yod He Yod, ALEF-TAV Resh. The English letter transposition is YHY AUR. AUR, where we get the word aura, aurora, or. Oro is the word for gold in Spanish. Sounds the same, spelled different. What I'm saying is that the whole thing with the etymological dictionaries that looks at other languages, so you can go by either phonics, sound, or letter equivalents, spelling, and you have to conduct the study yourself. So one of the things I've found is that by orchestrating, organizing, Ayin Resh Kaf Eng, the alphabet, to these colors, to these letters, somebody told me quite a few years ago that people that were, let's say, raised in the when you're little kids, baby boomers, raised in the, let's say, the 50s and 60s, you may not know what I said. If I were to say the color H, or what's the color of the letter H? For some reason, yellow comes to mind. I don't know if that's true or not, but you could say why? Because there was these refrigerator magnets. They were about 1.5 inches high, and they all had certain colors. They were made by, I don't know who it was, Milton Bradley or some Fisher Price or some toy manufacturer back then. And everybody, you might say, it was the suburbia thing. Everybody in America and suburbia all got the same magnets, and they were made out of plastic, a certain size, a certain weight. You couldn't swallow them if you're a little kid, a toddler, and you could stick them to your refrigerator and spell words. And kids learned how to read. And all the colors were consistent, whatever those colors were. I don't recall at the moment. But somebody did some study, 30, 40 years later and said, hey, look, it's the colors of those letters got imprinted in all those kids' minds. And now they somehow associate those colors with those letters without even realizing that they're doing it or realizing why they're doing it. But it worked. So I decided way back when to keep a very consistent color progression in this chart. And over the years, I slightly modified them in order to get a Pantone color, or what is it called? CR. Okay, anyways, a certain Pantone is for printing, and it's a certain number, like a hertz frequency, so that every single print shop has the same color. And in getting this chart and other graphics made, the colors get messed around with because other people have different printing or different codes, and it's like the software floats. It doesn't stay stable. And one problem I found with, if I take my graphics and send them to somebody as a PDF or on a flash drive or something, and they go to get it printed, it's going to come out looking differently. And the print shop doesn't know. It has no idea what colors it's supposed to be. And I found, just going to a couple different places locally here, where it's completely different and wrong. I'm the only one who knows what color it's supposed to be. So I've put a huge effort, actually, I have no idea, trying to keep these colors specific. And so, maybe it looks like on this particular printing of the chart, the Dalet and the Noon and the Resh are all the same, but then I slightly modified it later, made the Dalet more of a pure red, Noon kind of an orangish red, and the Resh kind of a burgundy red. You won't see that on this particular chart, but why? I did that with the playing cards. And the reason for the playing cards is, and I told this story a long time ago, but I had a friend, the guy that I met, who was wanting to learn Hebrew. And again, I'm telling you this in order for you to learn how to learn the language. That's what we're talking about here. Learn how to learn the language. And you could say, why should I? You got to figure out your own answer to that question. Because it's Yahweh's own language, that's a good place to start. Because he spoke to us in Hebrew, that's another reason. But the point is, this one guy wanted to learn the language, and he lived in the upstairs of a garage, in a barn sort of a situation. The rafters were right here, and laying in bed, he would write a Hebrew word on the piece of wood, right? So when he's laying there with his eyes open, he's staring at the Hebrew word. And it would just kind of work on his mind, or his mind would work on it. He's just sitting there and stare at it and think about it. And I thought, that's great. Maybe I should make, everybody loves stickers, like everybody had refrigerator magnets with letters. When you're little kids, they get these little stickers and they put them everywhere. And when you get older and you're in, grade school or high school, you get stickers and you put them on your notebook. Get a little older, you put them as bumper stickers. Back in the late 1960s, they had the love bug thing, the Volkswagen Beetle, and come up with these things that look like flowers, flower power, and people were putting these stickers everywhere. It's like, people like stickers. So I made a whole bunch of these various graphics with some of them are on here, but as stickers, just because. And then it's like, well, what's a good size? A little, not too big, and because you stick it somewhere, and then you think when you look at it, you see it. So this thing down here called the Rosetta Stone, the the gray with the letters, and I made that. Basically, it was like 9 inches by 30 inches, and it would generally, even if your walls are full, unless you have some sort of valance thing above your doorway, the typical 8-foot ceiling, there's about a 10-inch gap between the top of the door molding and the ceiling. And so there's a bare space of wall that most people can stick something. And so by having it 30 inches, most doors are pretty close to 30, if not 32. That's a piece of empty wall. So I made that to fit right there. And even though it's not a prominent place that I view, by having it up there, you just notice it. And I've noticed for my own self over the years, I've looked at that thing 10,000 times. And I'd sit there and I'd stare at it. Just stare at the alphabet. It's got the Sophite letters on top, the modern, and then the Paleo, then the Mishkan pattern. And having a fixed placed item where you can just sit and stare at it. Because see, if you don't have the alphabet written anywhere, it's in your imagination. And if you didn't imagine remembering properly, or you're confused, or you're just, it somehow works differently to have it written, like the guy writing on the ceiling. And then I thought, well, to make this chart, this is a little bit oversized, but I made it approximately, I think it was 24 inches. Maybe it was 22 inches by, I don't want to get it too long. It could have been bigger. So it was about, a little over 3 feet by about 22 inches, because on a closet door, which might be 24 inches, without messing up with the door handle, boy, 22 inches would hang right on the inside of a closet door. So you could open the closet door and look at the chart whenever you wanted to. Close it, not always there, but it's like, boy, it's handy if you want to look at it. By hanging this chart on the back of a door in my living room, again, I'm always seeing it and thinking about it. So it's like the more you provoke or allow your mind to contemplate it, the more familiar, the more, brother, ayin mem, family, the language becomes. It's not a foreign language. It becomes your language. So what's this word goy? Well, gimel vav, masculine suffix, gimel hey, feminine suffix. What's gimel hey? There was no word gimel hey. But see, I also know that the way Hebrew works, you can stick random prefix letters in front of a word, and then quite often you'll find it. What are the prefix letters? If there's an aleph as the first letter of a word, it basically means I am or I will, and then there's the verb action. Bet means in, on, with, among, through, against, for the price of, the condition of, the state of. It could mean any of those things. Gimel dalet is typically like an Aramaic prefix that means kind of like for the sake of, or in this instance of. Hey is a prefix that means the. Vav is a prefix that means and. But it's not just and, it can mean but, or however, or in which case it's this bridge connecting sort of a concept with something else. This and that. Peru uruvu, be fruitful and multiply. Was that two different things, or is it being fruitful and multiplying as an aspect of being the fruition is how things multiply? Not two different things, but two connected things. Just saying that you have to sit there and contemplate the use of the vav in all of its instances. Is that really just a nail? That's all it is? Some people say, oh, it's a tent stake. Well, it's a bridge, it's a connector, somehow it's a linking. Yod, that's a prefix that basically means he will, but quite often you see a yod prefix in a word that's spelled that doesn't say he will. It kind of is that third person reference that he will, it will, this will yet happen. Kaf means like, lamed means unto or belonging to, mem means the object or the person or the tool or the place, the time where something then happens. Nun is a prefix of like this, we're going to make this happen. Sheen is a prefix, that which belongs to, similar to bet and dalet, but a little different. And then tav is a prefix or a suffix, can mean not happening now, but did happen in the past or will happen in the future, basically. Now, somebody who really knows the language could say, this guy just messed it all up. And it's like, I don't think I messed it all up. You might be able to think about it and think a little bit better than me. Go ahead. But I found this list I just gave you of the prefix letters works pretty much that you can just pick it up and run with it. I'll give you the suffix letters here at the same time. So the last letter in a word, when these 5 letters are the last letters of a word, just so you know, in modern Hebrew, they're written in this different form called sophit letters, if they're the suffix. But if we go back here and say Aramaic, quite often in the etymological dictionary, you'll see aleph as the last letter, and it basically, it's a silent, aleph is a silent letter, so it's maybe pronounced as it, maybe it's not even pronounced, but it doesn't do anything or change anything. Like, for example, the word spelled het tet yod, you'll see in the dictionary is either just het tet or het tet aleph. But het tet yod, see, yod is the suffix letter that makes it personal. It's my own. So if het tet is the word sin, het tet aleph is also sin, but hen tet aleph also means sin sacrifice. It also means to incur guilt, to find favor, be absolved of your guilt, and be restored to relationship. Why? Because of your sin sacrifice. So if yod means my, then I can replace the aleph with the yod and say het tet yod means my sin. I incur guilt. I have a sin sacrifice who incurs my guilt for me so that I can be cleansed and I can be absolved of my sin and I can find favor. Because all that is what het tet aleph means, and het tet yod makes it mine. And that's just the spelling of the word in the natural sequence of, hey, here's 3 letters of the alphabet in the alphabetic order. And then if I say, yeah, but in looking at the alphabet, I know that hey, vav, zayin, hey is to reveal or express. Vav is the masculine suffix, a man. Hey is the feminine suffix, a woman. But vav is the man, and zayin is to specify. It's the 7th letter. Zayin hey is the word this. Zayin ALEF-TAV is also the word this. Zayin hey means to identify, like, let's identify this. Zayin being number 7, like the 7th day of creation, it's completely cut off from the other package of 6, and it's separated. Which day? This day. The Zayin hey, the Zayin ALEF-TAV day. The Zayin hey. See this one that's different than the others? This number 7, which is not number 1, or any of the 1 through 6, this one. These are the type of thoughts for navigating the language, navigating the spelling of words. So then thinking, wait a minute, Pontius Pilate, when Yahushua was being scourged, and then they put the purple robe on him and crown of thorns and put him on display to the crowd and said, this is your king. Behold this man. Behold this man. Well, the word behold is hey, noon, hey, hana. Hey, aleph is here is. So this thing with the letter hey, the man, this. Well, that's like, behold, this man. So I realized, hey, Vav Zion is in essence the script of Pilate identifying Yahusha as the king of the Jews. Of course, that was in mockery. But then they killed him, put him to the weapon, and threw him in a tomb and rolled a round rock in front of it. And the round rock was, they say, had a hole core drilled in it, and an iron rod, a foot long, an inch diameter, was hammered in, and that held the stone from being dislodged out of the face of the tomb, so you couldn't just roll it away. So how did the angels show up 3 days and 3 nights later and roll the stone away? But sheared off that pin or removed the pin. That was divine intervention of some type. But Yahusha said, these guys aren't doing this to me. I myself am volitionally laying it down. I am doing this. Well, see, that makes it his own. That means the death and incarceration into the tomb is his thing. So that's the Yod making this him coming from heaven to earth as the voyager traveler who would be come through the door of the woman, the pelvic, the dalet, the triangle. See, if you look at the way the triangle is shaped in Paleo-Hebrew, different scribes will have it go in all different directions. In mathematics, if you do a triangle like this, it basically means the change of something. 3 dots mean therefore in a triangular shape. And you'll see, well, is a triangle shaped like this or triangle shaped like that? And then, okay, that's an occultic symbol of the what they call Solomon's star, or the Jewish Star of David. And what is that? Is that right? And it's like, how's that the Star of David? And it's like, because the dalet is a triangle. Dalet, Vav, Dalet is the way you spell dude or beloved or David. Dalet, Vav, Dalet. Well, if Vav is a nail or a hook or connector, and Dalet's a triangle, then you're saying 2 triangles hooked together is the word David, is the word beloved. It's not very complicated graphic to take 2 triangles and superimpose them over the other, and you end up with what we call now a Jewish star. It's Jewish. It's like, it is not. It's just a graphic of 2 triangles hooked together, superimposed. Well, I could say, well, yeah, but nowadays it is a Jewish star. You can't say it is not. You can take the 6-pointed star and go all the way back to BC, 1000, whatever, and people using that as a symbol. So there are people, just so you know, who will say that is not what it means, shut up. And other people say that is exactly what it means, you shut up. And other people say it's occultic, and other people will say it's David. And it's like, other people will say Solomon used it as some sort of a talisman, some sort of woo-woo, eerie, spooky little symbol that wields power. And it's like, is there any power in any symbol? And other people can say, oh, yes, there is. And other people might say, no, there isn't. Okay, just so you know, you pondering this language and you holding on to something or letting something go because of this reason or that reason, you could change your mind next time next time you meet somebody. Do you still believe that way, or have you changed your mind and become a believer of something different? Well, what have you bumped into in the last week? You talked to somebody, you watch a video you hadn't seen before, somebody told you about the shape of the earth, or did we really land on the moon, or how far is outer space? We're told certain things, what year is this? And then all of a sudden somebody comes up and says, there was a certain, I think it was a German emperor or whoever he was, added, I think it was 300 years because he wanted to make it seem like that he was a certain guy. And then the Jews supposedly took away, was it 273 years or whatever the number was, way back when, in order to make a certain rabbi line up with maybe being the Messiah. And then somebody else says, well, there's a bunch of dark ages and things got lost, but we know exactly. And then somebody else says, no, they took away 1,000 years. And then there was a guy years ago who had this computer program, a guy named Bob Wadsworth. He wrote a book and he did some talks and studies. I'm not sure, they're probably out there somewhere on the internet, Bob Wadsworth. But when he got this computer program, this was really a big deal, because what this would do is show you the night sky any particular day. And because the night sky is like clockwork, like gears and incremental movements, the scientists, know for sure that you can say, well, if this constellation is here, it must be this day of this year, because that's where it would be. And they can do that for the entire year. And not only that, but if you look at the planets and you look at how the constellations and then some of the comets that they have tracked with this computer program, he said you could wind back 10,000 years forward or backward, and they'll show you exactly what the sky looked like on any given day. Well, if that's true, and this is where he went in his book, is you could say, what did the sky look like on the day that Abraham sacrificed Isaac, or was about to sacrifice him on Mount Moriah? And they can look at the stars and see what was going on with the constellations and the planets and see if there was any sort of significant event. In fact, you could wind the whole thing back and say, this is the day Adam was put into the Garden of Eden. And somebody could say, shut up, it is not. But no, people are saying, look at this. We can tell because of the significance of what the stars are doing, this is that day. And then they could look at back and think, this is the day Yeshua was crucified. And does it line up with one of the Moedims? Well, that was the whole study. The interesting thing, I got that book from Bob Wadsworth, and it sat around for a few years. And then I thought, I really should read that, because I have an interest in the study of the constellations and stuff. And it's like, it wasn't that big of a book, it was kind of big and light blue cover, if anybody remembers, about not even a half an inch thick. But anyway, it took a little while to get through the book. I was trying to wrap my mind around it. And all of a sudden, one day, I'm finally getting to the end of the book. It was a real kick in the head. The afternoon, I'm sitting there, get to the last page of the book. And basically, he said, based on all these calculations and all these numbers and the way everything works and where the stars are, this is the last day of the world. This is the day that, the rapture happens, Jesus comes back. And it was the exact day I was sitting there reading that last page of the book. It's like, today, of all days that it might have been, that was the day it was. It was just a total mind blower. Only it turned out that it didn't happen. How about that? Oops, maybe we miscalculated something. I'm not trying to bust the chops at Bob Wadsworth. I'm saying that's the nature of the computer program. Should have been able to tell us whether somebody, let's just say, snaked us and lied about adding 1,000 years that didn't belong there, or took away 273 years, or took away 300 years because of he wanted. It's like, if we have a computer that can calculate and show us the sky of every single day from right now, 2026, all the way back to when Yeshua was crucified, Abraham sacrificed, or the temple was burned down, don't you think we'd know if there was 1,000 years that was missing or something? Maybe not. I've heard some people say, hey, there's no way we went to the moon. It was all staged by Stanley Kubrick and in Hollywood. And some people say, no, it was filmed in New Mexico. And other people, I just saw somebody on the internet saying, hey, listen, when Neil Armstrong stepped down on that crater on the moon, there was a 109-foot alien standing around the rim of the crater watching him. It's like, how do you know that? We also know that they got secret bases. The Martians, or the Draco reptilians, got secret bases on the dark side of the moon. It's like, well, if we never went to the moon, how did we? All these what? And now with AI, there's all this stuff, and it's like, I have no idea what year this is. I have no idea whether the world is flat or spherical. I have no idea. If you hear about the Cabbage Patch and the orphan trains and the incubator babies in the early 1900s, you realize nobody has any idea of their genetics either. Pretty much nobody, because the ones who do keep track of their genetics, because they're the royal family, they're reptilians. And it's like, mixed seed, what? It's like, the only thing that matters is I am here now, and Yahuah has his words available for me to contemplate. Everything else is huff and puff, a bunch of stuff that, if there's any truth, there's no way to know. Everything else is bamboozlement, bewitchment, beguilement, or entertainment. You'll want to be entertained? Why should you learn this language? And how should you do that? Pull this all together. By putting these words to colors and associating them with the letters to the Mishkan pattern, it's all purely Yahuah's stuff, his words, correlated to his days. And they're not just days. The word moed-im, ed, ayin dalet, means witness and testimony. It also means bejewelment, adornment, ornamentation. The mem in front means the object. The im, moed-im, is the plural. But you see, if you look in Leviticus 23, he doesn't have a mem. So to say, well, these are my festivals, it's not what it says. It might be translated that way. But moedi, well, that's a singular. Well, edi, ayin dalet yod, means my own personal, not plural if there's no mem. So by looking at these words, like in Leviticus 23, realizing that he's claiming that these festivals, including the Sabbath day and the 7 Moedim, Leviticus 23, are his personal bejewelment, which witness and testify of his what? It's his ornamentation, it's his adornment, it's his bejewelment, testifying, testifiers. Hey, they carry his DNA. These moedi of his, he designed as his bejewelment that retain his DNA, as it were, his code of life, which identifies him kadosh compared to any other. No other God. See, I only got that not from listening to Jewish teaching or Christian sermons. I got that from staring at the language, the meaning of the letters. Ayin dalet, testimony, witness. Ayin is a fruit with the seed in it, and the seed carries the DNA of the fruit to reproduce. Dalet is a door. Dalet's a choice. Ayin dalet is the word that means until the time. It's a progression of time, and time is ayin tav. Right now is ayin tav hey, but hey is an expression of. So how does ayin tav compare to ayin tav hey? What's time? Scientists say time's an illusion. Time doesn't even exist. All we have is right now. Atah is what we have. Well, then what's ayin tav? Ayin means calculate, to consider, to weigh, measure, balance, understand. Tav is a sign. Sign of what? Sign of the time. Sign of the oath, the agreement, the letters of the ALEF-BEIT. It's a logo. It's a glyph, a graphic that means something, like a letter of the alphabet. ALEF-TAV is a letter of the alphabet. ALEF-TAV is also a flag or a symbol or a color. Hey, that color means red, white, and blue. Hey, that means America. Yeah, but it also means England, France, and Russia, and a few other. It's like it means what you want it to mean if you are one of the people who use that as a reference. So what I'm saying is that you can become a person who makes this stuff ayin, noon, hey, which means to answer, reply, respond, send a letter back, RSVP, receive, play, but also humbled, burdened, make it your obsession, make it the focus of your attention, even to the point of not eating. Can mean fasting, it can mean concentrating, but not necessarily. It means to be humbled or burdened by, like a poor person who is impoverished or has to carry this load. But you could say, yeah, but I'm doing it volitionally on purpose. It's the word used in Isaiah 58. Yeah, but then in Jeremiah 23, where it's talking about, hey, everybody got a word from the Lord. Anybody got a Masa Yahuah? And Yahuah says, I better not anybody ever hear those words again. Better, you guys should be saying, Ma dabar Yahuah, Ma anah Yahuah. What did Yahuah say? And then it's translated, what did he pronounce? But the word anah isn't pronounce. Ayin nun hey. It's burdened by, meaning this is my focus of my attention. Yeah, but what's masa? Mem Shin Aleph, that's a burden. Because Nun Shin Aleph means to pick up and carry, to transport, to pick up a burden and carry it. It means like the picture of a groom and a bride, where the groom picks up the bride and carries her over the threshold. Ha ha, there's a little old tradition. No, it also means something. It's a symbolic act of, you, young lady, are now my burden to carry for the rest of my life. Walking into this house, it's like traditions are usually metaphorical, carrying messages. NASA, to pick up and carry something. So masa is the object picked up and carried. It's translated word or oracle. Everybody got an oracle from on high. And Yahuah gets, go read that chapter. He gets really ticked off at his people, really ticked off at anybody saying that word. Anybody got an oracle, a word from the Lord. You guys, it's like, what did he say? Ma dabar. What did he stipulate? Ma memhe means what? The bar is to stipulate. It's also the terms coming to agreement. It's also simply translated word or speech. Ma'ana Yahuah. What did Yahuah, what is he looking at? What is he thinking about? What is he concerned with? What did he say? I mean, see, if you read this in English, let me make it my own. And I keep trying to do this on purpose. I spent 50 years in the church since I was a little kid, as young as I can remember, looking at Bible stories and flannelgrams and Baptist grade school, Baptist high school, singing in the choir, playing in the worship band, home church ministries. And then all of a sudden realize, what did Yahuah say? I have no idea. I don't know what he said. I know what people say he said. And I know some pastors get up and talk about Greek, but if he spoke Hebrew, I have no idea what he said. I'm taking somebody else's word for it. And if somebody were to say, yeah, it says in Jeremiah 23, Madabar Yahuah, Ma'ana Yahuah, I didn't even know he said that. Nor do I know what it means. But if I can sit here and study this language, I can tell you exactly what I think it means. And you could do that for yourself as well. Don't take my word for it. So my point is, in sitting there correlating colors to letters, playing around, oh, it's playing around, but it's also really darn serious scientific business, because studying how the brain works and how people think, what are we subject to on the face of the earth? Well, we're subject to the weather, we're subject to physics and chemistry and mathematics, but Adam is also subject to his psychological processes. So I spent many years studying psychological processes. Why? Because I found myself to be subject to Adamic frailty, bad thinking. What's the matter with you? Go to a psychologist. Well, it's not me, it's Adam. This is what Adam has to deal with. Adam has to deal with, if it's not 70 degrees, you're either too Fahrenheit, you're either too cold or too hot, and there's a problem. If you don't have quite enough water and you drink the wrong stuff, it's not going to help you the way water helps you, because that's just the way we're built. See, this world is built a certain way, and it's all staging for Adam to wrestle, contend with the elements, with the theatrical staging, with the props. Why doesn't somebody fix that? This thing keeps coming down and hitting the actors. Oh, no, that's part of the play. In fact, I saw a play one time where stuff like that was happening. They blended what are we looking at? We're looking at actors playing something else, but the stage crew's coming in, and it's just like the whole point of the play was to mix the reality where you had no idea where the reality was. They did a great job of it. I forget the name of the play a couple years back. But anyway, my point is, why are we here? What are we supposed to be doing? Well, that's a question. Amy Grant, way back in the early 70s, I believe it was, remember a song. We're just here to learn to love him. We'll be home in just a little while. In a little while, we'll be with the Father. Can't you see him smile? In a little while, we'll be home forever. In a while. Is that why we're here? If the reason why we're here is to learn to love him, then why the hell are we going through this? And when I say that, I could say, look at what's happening with the international military conflicts. Look what's happening with the economic stranglehold that one nation has against another, and the suffering of the common people, shutting down their electricity, shutting down their heat in winter, exorbitant prices of fuel and groceries, threats to do all this, and then you look at the physical, painful torture, the people in control using air, water, and food as toxic tools of manipulation to affect what the society does, to take simple things like entertainment, and can I just smile for a while and say, this entertainment is a portal by which we can reach our hand in and grab your brain and squish it this way or that way because we're trying to do stuff to you. And it's like, what? To be aware all that's happening and then say, oh, this is just the playing field. This is just the staging for why Adam is really on the face of the earth. We're just here to learn to love him. Is that all there is to it? Well, if you love me, please get me out of this. If you love me, please heal my wife's body. If you love me, please help me not be such an idiot. If you really love me and I really love you, then will you please take all this stuff away from me? And then, like a guy was just telling me about a certain poem from a PT somebody. It wasn't Barnum, it was another guy. But anyway, he was saying that how, you especially if you read poems of really esoterically wise people or mystical people, they'll say things in like the book of Proverbs in such a way that comfort and convenience, though we crave it, is actually a malady, trouble. Because it's only through the torments that we become either refined or get to be as people that makes him happy. Gosh, can you imagine that? This seems to be the irony of how Adam is built. We live in a body, in a physical capacity, and in a staging of the physical, theatrical universe, world, nature, where we crave comfort and convenience. And that comfort is, like I said, if it's right around 70 degrees, plus or minus 1 or 2 degrees, but anything more or less, something's got to change. I need a beverage. I need to change my clothes. I need to get more sun, less sun, a little bit of shade. I mean, it's like, gosh, dialed in to the micro facet. And yet, if everything was comfortable and convenient, there was one time, so a friend kept telling me, go to the beach. Why don't you go to the beach? Just go to the beach. It's like 100 miles from here. It's like one day I had to go do some job or look at something down there. And I was there and I thought, I'm going to go to the beach. This is the day, the one day out of my life, I'm just going to go to the beach. So I go to the beach, and it happened to be a day that was so gray and it was still. Parked my car, get out, and the ocean was dead flat, no waves. And it was neither cold nor hot. The temperature was like just perfect, and there was no breeze, and there was nobody else around. And it was gray. You couldn't really much distinguish the air from the water, from I could call it bleak. And there was no sounds of anything. There was no birds, there's no other cars, there's no other. And I thought, well, what the heck, man? This isn't why I came to the beach. I didn't come to the beach for zero. I came to the beach to see what? Sun, surf, sand, color, beautiful. Of all, what a ripoff. But I decided to sit there and think about this. And it's like, this isn't a ripoff. This is what it is. And because this is what it is, it's allowing me to think about what a ripoff it is. Ripoff meaning this isn't like being at the beach. But I realized everything here is so neutral, it's no good. It's like watching a movie where nothing happens. It's like, that's why they have the expression cut to the chase. It's like, don't waste my time with character development. Let me just see the showdown. Let me see the two guys in the street pulling out their guns. I don't care why they're there. Let me see the action. And you see that stuff all the time on the internet now. They've cut to the chase of the scene in the movie that you always want to see, that takes you an hour to lead up to, just for that climactic, there's the movie, there's the scene. And yet that day at the beach was so opposite. And I thought, this is really a radical thing, to be this nothing. And it made me realize that's part of what Adam is designed to deal with, is that even when everything's good, it's no good. That's just our dilemma that's built into our psyche. A friend would tell me how his mother and father would be driving down the road and everything's fine, and all of a sudden his mom would just start laying into his dad driving, just nagging, nitpicking, complaining, and then they'd be going at it, and it's like, can't you just leave it alone? No, there's got to be some agitation. Why? Color. That's the way we are. So when you realize, okay, if that's Adam's plight, that's Adam's condition, that we're always designed to be discontent, you start reading the Bible, and one thing Yahuah hates is our attitude of discontent. Grumbling and complaining, bitching and moaning and groaning and griping. And it's like, about what? About the fact that he didn't give them enough bread. He didn't give them enough water. He didn't. Yeah, look at the Exodus. Right out of the gate, people are complaining, and he's wanting to smack them. They're thirsty. He brings them to a pool of bitter water. They can't drink it. They start complaining, and he's mad at them. Hello, give them some decent water, would you? Why do you think they're complaining? That's not. Well, then I read, remember way back in the 70s, somebody found that place where that water was, out in the Middle East, over there near Egypt and Sinai, and they said there's a certain mineral content to the water in that pool, and had the Israelites drunk that water, the minerals would have killed all the parasites that are in their gut. It was actually beneficial water. And there's a tree growing there, and Moshe was told to cut a branch of the tree and throw it in the water, and then the people could drink it because the water became sweet. But what happened was, and this is what some scientific experiment was back, like I said, back when they threw that plant into the water, it made all the minerals drop to the bottom of the pond, thus leaving the water sweet. Yeah, but then it lost its medicinal value. And it's like, go figure. Is that the way this world is designed, that there's a medicinal benefit to the torment? It'll purge the parasites out of you, because that's just the way this place is built. If we just shut up and deal with the circumstances and say thank you, even though we hate it, even though we're thirsty and the water's bitter, I can't drink this, or I don't want to drink this, or it's distasteful. It's like, just drink it now. It'll kill the parasites. Then we give you some good water later, okay? You guys, would you just quit complaining? I know what I'm doing. Is that what he's saying? Yeah, but it hurts. Of course I'm complaining. Yeah, but the cops are on my back, or somebody's got an unjust charge taking me to court, or these guys are throwing stuff at us. They're breaking windows and letting their horses run through the garden. This is a big problem. What's the solution? Our God should intervene. Well, yeah, but that's not the way it works. So if we think about, well, what are we supposed to be doing? Why does the universe even exist? If the universe exists, we're just here to learn to love him. Yeah, but what about when he doesn't behave and makes it difficult for us to love him? Like, why doesn't he stop those guys from doing that and this from, why doesn't he heal my body? Why doesn't he give me some more money? Well, maybe that's not very developed theology. We're just here to learn to love him. So there's this other concept that Paul talked about. Boy, if we even knew, if we had a slight even of a glimpse of what he's got planned, anything we put up with now, is just so long as we get there, it will be well worth it. And no matter how much we hate the gruel, what we're dealing with now, once we get there, it's like, whoo, that was all that it cost me? Well, that was nothing. How easy to get there. So there's this concept of saying, this is Project Earth, and suppose there's another project. After this Earth is over and done, there's another project. And you could say, well, where's the evidence of that? Well, there's the mythos that says, well, here we have struggles on Earth, and when we die, we go to glory land of pearly gates and sitting on clouds playing harps. Is that all? What? I've heard it said that there's treasures in heaven. I heard one minister say, giving a sermon, he said, there are no treasures in heaven. And it's like, well, Yeshua said there's treasures in heaven. It's like, no, the treasure is being in heaven. There are no treasures in heaven. How can you say there's no treasure in heaven if Yeshua says there's treasure in heaven? Well, it's metaphorical. In fact, the greatest treasure is to be in the throne room, staring at the Heavenly Father sitting on his throne, and you're just standing there forever, never having to leave, going like, wow. Wow. Imagine standing there for eternity, mind blown, overwhelmed, just, oh. That's the greatest treasure. And you could say, oh, come on. Well, those angels that fly around the throne saying, holy, 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 kadosh, kadosh, kadosh. That's essentially their life. I've heard somebody say that the rabbinical teaching or whatever, I think it's in Ezekiel, that it is that every time they go around the throne, they see something new and they go, wow, kadosh, whoa. There's no better word to describe what they just saw. And they go around the throne again and they see something else. They go around the throne and they see something else. For eternity, these angels going around the throne, kadosh, kadosh, kadosh. That's like the ultimate climactic epitome, zenith of all experience, just to behold the present emanating kadoshness of our Heavenly Father. And that's it. That's the supreme. To think, oh, hey, let's leave here and let's go out to the heavenly Garden of Eden and let's eat from the tree of life and take a splash in the river of life. That's all just that's ghetto compared to being in the throne room. Well, which is it? Maybe a little bit of both, or there's no time, and so how long do you do this and that? But what if he had another project? What if Elohim, just a what if he had another project where he says, maybe it's another multiverse, or maybe it's I can't even imagine with my limited human imagination what it might be. But let's just say it's that thing that's so spectacularly great. If he says, hey, I need a team, I need somebody to crew with me in that project, who wants to volunteer? I don't know what it is, but hey, I'll volunteer. Well, so he has a whole bunch of volunteers, but then he says, yeah, I've got to winnow out. It's kind of like Gideon trying to pull together the army, and he's got everybody that says, okay, lay our life down and we're going to go fight against the enemy here. And Yahuah says, you got too many of them. They outnumber us 10-1, and you say there's too many of us? Yeah. Anybody who has just got married or anybody that has kids and they want to go home, just have them go home. There's still too many. Anybody who's afraid, just go home. Okay, well, that was still too many. Okay, I'll tell you what, go have them drink some water. So the ones that laid down and dropped their weapons and put the water, he said, have them go home. The ones who stayed with their weapons in their hand and just knelt there and scooped up water in their hand and looked around and said, those are the guys. And I think there was like 300 of those guys. It's like, that's it? These 300 guys, that's the army? That's the crew. That I want these guys. See, each thing, he said, if you're not up to it, leave. If you blah blah, okay, I'm trying to just get an elite core. Now imagine if for this future project, Yahuah just needs an elite core. And so he says, why are we here on planet Earth? Well, to find those people, to give whoever, and I've heard people say that we've come from a living consciousness elsewhere in some dimension of heavenly reality, that we chose to become born on the earth. Now, I don't have that in remembrance, but other people do. I've known a couple people specifically saying that they have flashback glimpses of being in that other place. And so whatever, I don't know. But suppose people get to choose to come to this earth. Why? Hey, I'd like to start living on planet Earth. Well, you might not get to go to heaven later. If you fail on the planet Earth, you might end up burning in hell, to run that storyline. Are you sure you want to run the risk of being born on Earth? Whoa, never mind. And so, but all of us who are born on the face of the earth are ones who said, yeah, sure, I'll take that gamble. It's a little distracting. You might get bamboozled. You might get led astray, and you might have gambled and risked. This is a possible scenario of reality that some people believe. You're in the heavenlies, and you take the ultimate gamble that you can come to Earth and win, so that you can have a better eternity than you would have had in that state that you were before. But Yeshua said, many will miss the gate and lose, and only very few find the door. Carl, I see your hand up. I'll just end this here pretty quick. So imagine that this is a risk, and then imagine, how do you survive? How do you find the door if Yeshua said very few find the door to life? And that while we're here on this earth, it's a dangerous, risky mission for us even being here. And then you see people falling along the way with war and suicide and drugs and whatever else happens, idiocy, just being ripped apart by disease, whether it's manufactured or a natural or genetics going haywire or whatever. It's like, wow, what do we have to do to say that this life was a successful venture? What's the definition of success on this planet? And then that little bumper sticker from years ago, he who dies with the most toys wins. Yeah, shut up. Yeah, haha. Or, hey, I had houses and cars, but Yeshua said the wealthy people now will be impoverished later. The poor people now will be the wealthy ones later. Is that a necessary inversion? Or is it that if you, blessed are the pure in heart, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven? If you operate your life properly, if you bring your being into proper alignment, be aware it's not because you're successful on the face of the earth in terms of wealth and or opportunity or comfort and convenience. It's who you determine to become, refined to his measure and his stature. And if it comes through the grief and the blows, the beatings of mortal suffering, that seems to be what's designed. Therefore, when you're in the pain, financial or legal or health or relationship, count it all joy, brethren. Gosh, count it all joy, Can you sefer the Sameach? Can you Hodu la Yahuah ki tov? Leolam chazdo. Can you project your consciousness into the eternal reality, superseding every aspect of the mortal pain? Can you grab that vision and hang on like you're riding a bucking bronco? With that, we'll take a break.